And now I'm going to address the crowd of people who, quote unquote, watched Bakari Henderson get beat to death and they did nothing. First of all, a lot of times when something happens, people go into shock and denial. They cannot believe something's happening, or they think it's just a fight. See, this is a reason why most martial artists are going to, they focus on, when they talk about fighting or self-defense, they're either talking about contest or they're talking about straight up crime prevention of assaults. And that's what they call self-defense. They feel like the ego, I call them ego fights. Not all, but a lot of martial artists feel like ego fights aren't necessarily worth covering or giving attention to because they can be de-escalated and avoided, which is true. But the bad thing about an ego fight is that an ego fight can turn on you like that, and then it can become something dangerous. I'm going to go into my Mark McYoung bag from what I remember of his writings. I've never met him. Okay, I don't know Mark McYoung. I think I'm on his Facebook page, but that doesn't mean that he and I are buddies. We're not. I don't know him because I've never met him. But anyway, in one of his works, and I can't remember which one it was, he talks about, is it fighting or combat? Sometimes a fight can flip over into combat. Now, what I say about Mark McYoung is that a lot of the stuff he talks about, I sort of know. But the thing is, I didn't know I knew that. I didn't know I was Mark McYounging my way out of situations, because it's like I developed this ability to just get out of stuff. I remember my mother saying, I sent you, back in the day, there was a place called the Capitol Center in the D.C. area where they would have a lot of concerts and hip-hop concerts and stuff, and when kids would get there, there's always one or two incidents at the Capitol Center where some kids started fighting, but I magically, mystically, it just didn't come to me. And she would ask me, did you see it? I either didn't see it, or I saw it, I was like, yeah, I was right there. And it's always like somebody said something to me and I found a way to physically move away, or I would just say something and then they would lose interest in me and go after somebody else. And it wasn't because I was playing big bird. No, I was deflecting stuff. Has that worked 100% of the time? No. Because anybody who went to college with me know I got clocked in the eye when I was a freshman. And it didn't work. So it doesn't work 100% of the time. But it does work most of the time. And sometimes when you're fighting someone, it can flip the switch and turn to combat. I'll give you an example. Let's say two guys get into an argument, right? They start swinging on each other. You think it's just a couple of drunk fools, let them fight it out, right? So then one guy pushes the other guy to a table, and then the guy that gets pushed into the table reaches back, grabs a bottle. Once he does that, it's combat. And then he cracks the other guy over the head with the bottle. He goes, just 2 slashes, 2 hits. One hit hits him over the head, and then the other one cuts him across the face. And then he's like, oh, and then he is scared because he realizes that I didn't mean to do that. I just wanted to hurt him. I was so mad. I just wanted to hurt him. I think they call that, if you kill someone like that, I believe that's what manslaughter is, but don't quote me. Well, that's what it's supposed to be. And then now it's combat. So if the person whose face got slashed, then he feels threatened, then he picks up just grabs a chair because he's scared and mad too, and just swings wild with the chair, just swings big gross motor movement. And he hits the person that cut him with the bottle, with the chair, And then that guy falls back, hits his head on the table, hits his head again on the floor, and then he dies. And that's just how quick a fight could turn into combat. And then it could result in somebody's death. So I'm thinking, unless during the trial of these guys that killed Bakari Henderson, unless it comes out that they deliberately set out to kill him, they probably were thinking, we're going to kick his butt. So they ran after him, and then they just heard him, we're going to stomp him. Yeah, that's right. They may not have thought that he was going to be killed. They may have thought at worst he was going to be in the hospital. Now, see, that's why you need to, if you can, you need to break up fights. I'm going to put up a video that contradicts me telling you to break up fights in a minute. But that's why if you can, you should break up fights. You really should. Because it could flip and turn into combat. The days of let those guys fight it out, they're just blowing off steam. Apparently, we can't do that anymore. And I thought it was just America, for I have not traveled outside the United States. Apparently, the whole world is beyond two dudes just swinging it out. Then they get tired. And then they end up being at least friendly towards each other afterwards, if not friends. Apparently, we can't do that anymore in this world. Everybody has to jump, or somebody got to stab or shoot somebody. You can't just put them up. You can't do that. People are too scared. It's like actually a couple of people have said, and I have to paraphrase because this channel is supposed to be somewhat PG. People are afraid to take a tail whooping anymore. They are. When I was growing up, it wasn't necessarily that you got beat up that made you weak as a guy. It was, were you afraid to fight? Even if you got beat up, because I remember having these conversations. Oh man, he get beat up all the time. But you know what? He fought though. That's all right. But he stood up. He stood up though. Hey, you can't do that anymore. Because if you don't end up getting killed because fight flips to combat, you're going to end up getting arrested because there are people that want to lock you up and put you in the prison industrial complex where they can get money for you being cheap labor. And that's all I'm going to say in that line of conversation. And I'm going to wrap up the Bakari commentary in the next video.